So, first of all, I'm Angela Stillwell, the owner and founder of the Art of Healing. And I know that your name is George, but how do you pronounce your last name, George? Is it Abdul?
George Aidoo. George Aidoo. Aidoo hails from West Africa, where my dad is from.
Okay. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
So I was saying Abdu or Abdu, and I knew that wasn't right. So that's why I just wanted to get a clarification how to pronounce your last name. So it's Adu.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's nice to meet you,
Thank you.
George Adu. Um, So first, let's get just a little more in-depth information about you personally, not
Mm.
necessarily about your art. So you just told me that your dad is from West Africa. Where are you from? Where was you raised? Was you born in Africa? Was you born in the U.S.?
I get that. I've been getting that question since I was like old enough to talk. So,
Wow.
yeah, everybody asked it. It doesn't like, it does not matter who the president of the United States right now. I'd be like, oh, are you? I'm like, no. Um, my dad is from Ghana, but my mom is from New Orleans.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I'm pretty sure the 80s or maybe the early 90s, my dad moved here to live with his brothers, to just start businesses and all that good stuff, the American dream. And then he met my mom at a party, went with the age old line, I think God wants us to be together. And she was like, please. um, a few years later, here I am. So I'm from New
Okay.
Orleans. I'm from New Orleans, born and raised. There's a playground somewhere over there. Spent most of my days.
Um,
Um, so yeah, I'm from here. Went to school in the city. I went to St. Augustine High School. They're known for their band. I went to Dillard University, known for not only their arts program but also the nursing program there too. It's a great HBCU in the city. Um, Had a great time at both of those schools. Now I'm a after school teacher at a organization called College Track.
okay. Okay. So let's back up just a little bit.
Right.
So I know that some of these questions will overlap with what Leah asked you,
Mhm.
but I want to get more in depth if you don't mind. I want people to really know you.
Of course.
And so, when can you remember the first time that you were even interested in art? Like, let me tell you mine first.
Okay.
So, I remember, um, so I was one of these kids. Um, I guess you call me creative, whatever, because I was bored in school. I remember being bored in elementary, right?
Mhm.
And while the teacher was teaching, well, I was one of these ones that I didn't have to study a lot. I could just get it. So I'd get bored. And so while the teacher was teaching, I'd be drawing like the president's heads. You know how they have those heads in the classrooms
Yeah.
way back? I don't know if they still do it or not. But I would be drawing those presidents' heads just because that was more interesting to me. And I would
Mhm.
get in trouble all the time because I wasn't paying attention because I was drawing. Uh, so I think what I got into drawing was just because I got bored. I was bored, and that was interesting to me to draw.
Mhm.
So now you go and tell me what you remember the first thing. It's way back as you can.
I was uh, it's pretty on the nose, but I was always interested in cameras since a young age because my dad really likes a good camera. Actually, my first camera was probably gonna be one that I shared with him, but I was like, I don't want to share anything with that old man. Um, but I think artistically, it actually came out when I was kind of in middle school. It was very much the same. Like I would get bored in class, so I would just think up things or make something up or think outside of the box, which led me to make like short stories. I read them now; they're horrible, but I write short stories, and it's just I spent a lot of time doing it. And then when I got to high school, I kind of got my friends in on this like short story creative writing craze. Um,
Cool.
And, after that, it became photography. I feel like after this, it's probably going to be videography because I've always like thought of like, oh, I could make a music video and it'd be super cool.
Yeah,
Um,
that kind of plays into that short story thing. Like you
right.
could create stories, right, with videos.
And I'm still trying to with photography. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit more later.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Um, so one of the things that I'm trying to point out for the world, you might say, is that the importance of art
mhm,
in um, just learning, right? And in life. Um, the fact that we were both bored. I'm sorry, they're doing the lawn in the background. If you hear that, I apologize.
no, I can't.
But just the fact that we were both bored when we were kids, right? That, and I have a daughter, the same thing. She was in the fourth grade and they were trying to tell me that they thought she had ADD.
Mhm.
And I said, well, and they wanted her to get on medicine. And I said, well, let me get her tested first. I don't, So I took her to a psychologist. And what ended up happening was he said, no, she's not ADD at all. She's just bored. He told me she had an IQ of almost a genius level. So she was bored.
Mhm.
And so my point is she needed to do, like you said, think outside the box. She needed to be able to um, explore things that wasn't so objective, more subjective, right? Use her imagination. And that's important to all humans, whether you're bored or not, is being able to, one thing, being able to create gives you a feeling of individuality, like this is me, you know, creating something, look what I created, right? Look who I am. I'm this individual that created this. And not only that, it expresses who I am. And to me, that's what's important about art. It's not as much about of course, the final product, but it's more about being able to express and create. And that makes us humans happier. If we can't do that in life, I just don't believe that we can be as happy. Could you imagine what it would be like if you were not allowed to create anything?
No, that's one thing I don't imagine. But I agree though. So I did a big like interview reverse panel for my job a few months ago. Um, One of the questions was, "What do you wish that the program did more?" And the kids really said, "We would like a art program or like a creative writing program or like a program where we can sit down and like people basically like show people our feelings." And I said, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially right now, while we're in the pandemic, or as
Right.
everybody on the internet calls it a panoramic.
Yeah.
Um, while we're in this time right now where people need to have their feelings expressed and understood, I feel like the arts is the best way to do it. I have a friend of mine who learned how to draw, and when I say learned how to draw, I'm talking about almost photorealistic
Yeah.
during the pandemic, and I'm like,
Yeah.
look at that. The photography I had before all of this happened versus now,
Hmm.
2 very different things. And so not only can it help you express your feelings because I used it to kind of get out the house, get some fresh air, hone my skills in photography, but it also like made me feel good to sit down, relax, like, what am I gonna do with this picture? Open Lightroom, try to deal with Photoshop, close Photoshop. All these things.
Exactly.
Um, just a culmination of like feelings, right? Because it's my expression through screen.
Right.
And so,
And
you
that's
know,
what I'm talking. That's what my whole company is about right there, what you just said, that feeling. It is very healing for a human to be able to express themselves and create. And so during this pandemic, your friend, he, he or she, excuse me,
mhm,
it was all about probably just creating something and learning how to create something. And so they took it all the way to like learning it so well that it looks like a photograph, huh?
I just you I when I was at a pop-up when it happened, he was just drawing off of a screen on his phone. And I was like, "Man, how long have you been drawing?" He was like, "I just started when the pandemic started." And this was last year in maybe December. So I'm like, "You started learning how to draw in basically March and you're that good?" Like,
Yep. So he definitely has that in him. He just didn't realize it until he put forth the effort, right?
right.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about art, um, I cannot tell you. So before, in my background, before I became a psychologist, I was a art teacher.
Okay.
And yeah, I spent 10 years as an art teacher. So pretty much my whole adult career, I've heard people say, "Oh, I can't draw, so I'm no good at art."
Mm,
And really drawing is a skill that can be, it can be taught. You can learn it. But that's, you know, I don't want to say drawing is and that skill is not important, because it is, because it gives you that confidence when you can do it really well, right? But it's just the tool that you need to really do what art is, and that is express yourself and create, right? So usually most people, when they get involved in art, it's, you know, in the beginning, it's about honing in on the skills, right? That's the basics. But after that, it's defining who you are as an artist. And the way you do that is you start getting into expressing more of who you are. Your art becomes your own rather than drawing something from something.
right.
So therefore, you're creating. Research and history has shown that the importance of the arts, and I'm not just talking about visual arts, I'm talking about music,
Mhm.
dance, theater, you know, all the arts. We're creating every day, we're creating something. We just don't really think about it. Like when we create what we're going to wear when we get up in the morning, right? Or when we cook a meal, from scratch or something, we are creating that meal for ourselves. It just, we're doing it all the time. We're making decisions every day, and those decisions come from, most of them, except for when we're told what to do, we make our decisions through picking our choices. So
Right.
therefore we're creating our decisions, right?
Right.
So humans are innately creative, and a lot of people don't realize that. And if you take that away from us, we're not happy. We're not happy. We need to create in some way or form. And so that's how important the arts are for us. And I just feel like it's sad that people don't realize how important they are. And the arts have gone on the back burner in the
Mhm.
world. But I think with, like you were talking about with this pandemic, I'm, that's one of the good things that's come out of this pandemic is people are turning to the arts more. And that's wonderful.
I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing, and again, it's just working in education, working, dealing with like my parents or my friends, my girlfriend. Um, what I think people don't realize is art is actually most related to wellness. Um, so when my mom wasn't feeling well one time, uh, I said, okay. Went to see her, got all her lawn stuff out during the pandemic, went outside and I painted with her. We just sat down, we painted, we talked about life and stuff like that. Um, Kind of the same thing with my girlfriend. I'm like, hey, do you want to come with me to to model for me? Because you look good. I know she's gonna
Is
watch
she
this.
the one in the photographs?
She's in a bunch of them.
Yeah, she is. She's beautiful.
Yeah, really good. She's gorgeous. I could talk about her all day. She's a work of art. Um, But I'm like, "Hey, can you come with me?" And not only am I getting my, like, serotonin in when I'm taking the pictures, like, "Oh, this is a good one. Oh, you look good." She's getting that like, "Oh, I look good. You think I look good?" All that good stuff. My one of my friends, he draws, and so sometimes he'll get some painting sets out and we'll, like, paint together. But I say that all to say, like, all of it is related to your mental health, right?
Right.
Um, if you aren't feeling well, your art will reflect that, right? If you're feeling down in the dumps, your art's gonna look down in the dumps.
Mhm.
Usually when I like do painting or something like that, I'm always drawing a sky or an ocean or something, something vast, something it's like simple, but things that are like
Mhm.
very like calm at one point, can rage at another point, fickle, right? And you can say that goes with my psyche. Like I'm indecisive, so every time I paint something, the first thing I do is paint something that's basically indecisive. Um,
Cool.
but it just makes you feel better, you know?
Yeah.
There's so many people in so many ways that, especially in the pandemic, that people have really expressed themselves to really make you know how they're feeling, right?
Mhm.
I think that's the root of everything at the end of the day. Like, this was my feeling when I did this. When I took this picture, this was my feeling. Even now, I'm teaching an art workshop for 2 more weeks, and I told some of the students to take pictures this weekend so we can look at them in class and go through like what type of composition and ISO you use and all that stuff. Um, but when the student sent it in, I said, "Tell me how you felt or what you were trying to portray or what you're trying to express when you took those pictures. And I know you might be nervous about talking in front of the class. Then we'll discuss your picture. But at the end of the day, I also have to say, I can't be like, oh, this picture's bad, by the way. I have to be like, hey,
Yeah.
at least one of the 10 is good, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, art is really, I think, a good way for people to express themselves. I mean, I feel like people just go to music and draw on art painting to get that same expression.
Yeah.
But people have taken pictures of like mental health or historical pictures and stuff like that. That's expression. That's how they felt there in the moment.
That's
Um,
right.
when I do photography, I want to make sure people understand like, oh, this is what I'm trying to express because I know that photography is a very like in your on the nose, in your face medium, but you can still portray things in the background, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're right. You're right on, you hit the nail on the head when you talk about the importance of art is about expressing something. I mean, that's the whole purpose of art, whether it is music, dance, theater, visual arts, um, or, just what the outfit that you wear that day,
Right.
right? You get up in the morning. I do it every day. What do I feel like today? What do I feel like wearing today? And yeah, what the way I look will be how I feel. It expresses it, right? And that is also the root to why humans are so innately drawn to art, right?
Right.
We have to do something to express ourselves. That's why like being in isolation in prison is so horrible
Mhm.
because there's nothing to do to express yourself. And the imagination, will go take you over in there. That's why people go insane
Right.
because they can't express themselves. Um, but anyways, so yeah, it's really important. So now that we've talked about all of that,
Mhm.
right? So this is called Let's Talk Art. And I
Okay.
wanted to I wanted to get your feelings and your input about art. Now that we've gotten into that, so let's just go a little bit deeper about your art,
Okay.
right? You touched on it a little bit just now, but so you understand the importance of expressing, and I'm sure that's what you do in your photography.
Yeah.
Um, I heard something that you said just a while ago, something about like recording history.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's important to you in your art as well.
Yeah, like I said last interview, And I'm gonna repeat it for those people who haven't maybe seen it. Um,
Okay.
Coming from my dad, he was like, I put on an outfit. They When I was younger, he gave me like this basketball outfit, and I hated basketball. I didn't really like sports or anything like that. I just wanted to read books. Um, and if you see me in person, I'm built like a linebacker. So the fact that I'm like, "Oh, I'd rather read." So many people. Wow, one of my neighbors was like, "You could have been a D1 athlete." I was like, "Yep," and I would have got that sports scholarship and still just went to school.
Yeah.
So my dad, I remember it because it's like we're like 10 feet away. I'm 10 feet away from where it happened because I'm by my parents right now. And I had this like basketball outfit, and my dad was like, "You look cool. You look nice. Let me take some pictures of you." And at my young age, I was like, "I don't want no pictures taken of me, man. Leave me alone." Um, and my dad loves to take pictures, capture memories, everything like that. There's a bunch of pictures of me at my uncle's house, running around, being a kid, looking mischievous. And so, like, he ignited the spark, right? He was like the flint and steel. He was like that flint and steel, like, oh, I want to taking pictures is really cool, stuff like that. Um, and then my uncle passed away a few years ago in 2017, and I was like, I don't have anything of anybody. And I was like, and I knew it was like it was a morbid take, but I was like, if I passed, what do people have of me? Pictures from like when I was in high school. I don't look like that now. I'm a different person.
Mhm.
How do I portray myself now? So, as a person who kind of had low self-esteem sometimes one day and then the other day I didn't, I decided to just start taking pictures of myself, of my friends, of my family. Um, and I'm big-headed, literally and figuratively. And so, when people said, "Well, you're good at taking pictures, you got a real eye for photography." I said, "Well, let me see how hard I can push this eye." So I got my first camera thanks to my grandmother. Um, and I've just been really trying to hit the ground running since then. But it's not like I will say that I kind of have a natural talent to it, but I feel like a lot of people forget that even if you have a natural talent to something, you still have to do what you have to. There are so many days that I got upset with my friends because they were like, "Why does this look like this? Why did you do this?" And I'm like, "This is the picture. I took the picture. I tried something." And they're like, "Yeah, but why?" So to push myself to that next state to figure out some of the terms, what ISO is, what the focal point is, what the shutter
Mhm.
speed is, how to work all three of them. And then I think the funniest turnaround is me teaching what all of those things mean. Because at one point I was like, I don't know what any of this is. Um,
Oh,
Finding out what noise is. And so it took some building, right? But I got it. But at the end of the day, it was to capture memories. And now it's not only to capture someone's memories, but also to create something, right? So some with some oomph to it. Those were kind of the pictures that I had in the museum, the noir pictures, right? Me saying, "Oh, I want to take a time period that was not really lost to us, um, but media sees one way." I said, let me make them see it a different way." Because I said when it comes to noir, it's clouded and Caucasian people, which is okay, but I mean, noir means black, and we only had side roles. We were never the main character. I was like, what if I did a shoot where we were the main characters and I started with black women? And then a thought came to my head. I'm like, you can do mob movies and make it kind of like American Gangster with Denzel Washington, where it's like, oh, it's just your friends in suits. You tell them they look good and all that good stuff.
mhm.
And there's more and more ideas that I have. I just have to do them, and I think that's the hardest part. It's thinking about them. It's easy, writing them down, great, but doing it, it's like, sometimes you just wanna sleep in, you don't wanna get out of bed. I haven't had a weekend to myself in a really long time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Um, as you're talking about all that, I kept seeing photographer in my mind that I really like, and her name is Dorothea Lange.
Mhm.
Do you know who she is?
Sounds familiar. I'm still on the, I guess you can call it selfish side of art inspiration because, people ask me all the time, what inspires you? And I'm like, it's not a person. Well, it's myself and then it's the world, right? I see something and
Uh,
I'm like, well, I have to take a picture of that. I will,
right.
sometimes I'll stop what I'm doing. I will sometimes tell my girlfriend, take the camera, take it. And she'll be like, I don't know what you want. I'm like, just shoot the camera that way. It'll look fine. Do it. She's like, oh,
So she was she was a photographer during the Great Depression,
hmm,
and she recorded the Great Depression basically in her photography, but it was so expressive, and she was taking pictures of the people that were suffering, and she was expressing, their emotions and their lives during that time. So if you ever get a chance, look at her photography. She liked to do black and white because it was more, I guess, dramatic. Well, what am I talking about? Probably in the Great Depression, that's all there was too. But um, I just love her photography because of, you can really, and you can tell that the pictures that she took, the people were not aware that she was taking those pictures, because she got them in those moments where they were in, just like really in pain, and were showing that pain. So
mhm,
she wanted to record history, but she also wanted to record, that emotion, that expression that those people were showing in their times of, trying to survive. Some of them were starving to death. And so when you were talking about how, you want to record history and you want to have more Black people in your photography,
mhm,
you know, um, that's what I kept thinking about with her. Was she was wanting to record history, and she wanted to record, she took pictures of all races, but it was more about expressing the pain and suffering that was going on during that time.
right.
So um, I think you two are similar in that. So I would recommend you look her up. I think you would like her photography.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
another photographer, and like names always escape me, but he has his own photography style where it's kind of like people say it's a badly composed picture, but it's a good picture. Um, but if anything, it's really like slice of life. So he's a Japanese photographer. His name escapes me right now. I watched a whole video about him. I thought it was very interesting. Um, but he takes pictures at really weird angles and stuff like that. There was a picture of him, I think it was a woman in a hotel room, and it was just like her arm, but it was blurry, and you could like see up her arm and see her, but it was a blurry picture, you
Huh.
know. Um, and so some people you're like, well, that's not like a good picture. But to me, in the video, they were like, he's speaking to like the slice of life, right? So maybe it's like you're waking up in the morning, you see this person that you've done who knows what with, and they're in the bed just thinking about life and stuff like that.
That's
Um,
cool.
there are times like where it relates to when Katrina hit, since I'm from New Orleans, there was a time where I woke up in the middle of the night in a hotel room somewhere in Mississippi or Arkansas. I don't even remember where at this point, because they called it Tupelo, Mississippi, but there's no Tupelo, Mississippi, or something like that. I was like, were we outside of time? I don't understand.
Hmm.
Um, but if I can show you a snapshot in my brain, I remember it like it was yesterday. The room was super cool, as in like blue, because of the TV screen, and it was showing images of what happened with Katrina. And my mom was looking at the TV screen, just kind of distraught looking. And
Wow.
I woke up, saw it, kind of went back to sleep. Um, and it's images like that that I think are most impactful, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's just, I get it, right? You want to capture those type of moments. Sometimes I feel like it's a little expletive because when it came to the protest with George Floyd, right? I took pictures at them and stuff like that, but I'm like, am I taking pictures because I want people to see what's happening, or am I taking pictures so social media can see what's happening? And I think when it comes to things like that, that's like the biggest problem that a lot of artists, a lot of people have right now. Like, are you doing it because you actually care about what's happening, which I do,
Hmm.
um, or are you doing it for clout? And I
Yeah, exactly.
And I think a lot of people fight through that, right? Like, oh, I'm just doing it for clout. But like some people like myself, I'm like, oh no, I want to make sure like people see what's happening. I want you to see like there's kids out here. There's people of all shapes, colors out here fighting for one thing. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. I hear your passion as you
thank-
talk about that. So I I I think that what you're doing is wonderful, and obviously you're doing a good job at it because you've already had a show in a museum. That's awesome.
thank you.
And so I'm going to give you a little clout right now.
I really
um,
try not to toot my own horn, but some days I'm like, maybe I should take a break. And then other days I'm like, I'm the baddest in the business. Okay. If you tell me that everybody else in this thing didn't get into a museum in their first year taking pictures, I don't want to hear nothing.
yeah, that's right. You should be proud of yourself, really. And it, to me, that reinforces to you and validates to you that, I'm doing the right thing. This is what I was meant to do, right? Because when you're that good at it and the world wants to see it, then you got to keep going and,
Yeah.
follow that mission that you have of wanting to show the world, record history, and show the world you know, what you're feeling, what you're wanting to express. That's really important. And, someday, who knows, maybe you'll be like Dorothea Lange, and she's a very famous artist, by the way. Um, and, she's dead and long gone now, but um, everybody remembers her.
Right.
So you're also creating a legacy, not just for yourself, but for the world. So
That
yeah.
that's another one of my drives, right? As a 24-year-old man, I've had these conversations with my friends. I'm like, now photography at first was a hobby, right? That I got compliments with because I love compliments. And
Mm,
then it turned into like a business type of thing. Like, oh, I could take pictures for people for money, which is great because it's like a little side
right.
job that I can choose to do or not do. And then after, I kind of hit the ground running because I got into like this Florida-based museum, and then I got into the 2020 currents here at the Ogden Museum in New Orleans. Then I thought to myself, like, you're leaving a legacy, right? So not only
Hmm.
are you going to be George, the member of Phi Beta Sigma, which I'm in a fraternity, George who went to Dillard, George who went to St. Aug, now you're going to be George, the photographer. It's like another um, thing you're known as to people, right? You're not going to be like the guy I went to school with. He was like, no, that's the guy I took pictures with. And so how do I dictate myself in that legacy? This one that
That's
I've
right.
all my own, right?
So that is you expressing who you are,
Right.
right? Yeah. And people will remember you for who you are because you're out there doing that. And so my hat's off to you.
Thank you.
Um, we need more people like you, not just for you to leave your own legacy behind, but also to you know to record history, support the human race, you
Yeah.
might say, and because there'll be people that will look at your photographs and go, yeah, that's exactly, I get that. I understand what that was, what that painting or that photograph means, right?
So I can make
So
them
in
look
that
like paintings.
sense, you're healing other people. Do
Yeah.
what?
I said I can make them look like paintings now too. Yeah,
Oh,
Photoshop
can you?
Photoshop is it's bad, okay?
Oh,
Like,
I know.
not know how to use it at first, and then I just watched a few videos on YouTube University, and next thing you know, I'm like, okay, I know how to do this now. I'm doing all social stuff.
That's
Um,
right.
I can
So you're
even
adding to it with Photoshop.
yeah,
Um,
I can show Leah because I know I have her information. I'll send her like 2 or 3 pictures that I've just worked on in Photoshop, and you'll see.
Okay, that sounds awesome. We'll put them on the underneath on our website too. We'll add them to your.
Well, not one of them. I'm still working on the concept.
Okay. Well,
So
I'm just saying, you tell us which ones. We'll put them on there as well.
yeah,
Um, like I said, I'm here to support the artists in the world. I'm passionate about it. I've been an artist my whole life, and I feel like it's important that we support each other,
right.
right? Yeah. All right. Well, George, I'm not going to keep you any longer. I appreciate your time and I enjoyed our conversation. Whether anybody else gets anything out of it, I really enjoyed it.
It was really great. I always love sitting down and talking about what my art is, how I feel about art, because really,
Mhm.
like you said, it's just our expression. So,
Yeah.
these are the
Yeah.
times when I get jitters, right? I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I did whoopty woo and all this other stuff. And they're like, oh, that's what you did. And then I talk to one of my artist friends. And I'm like, this is what I did. And they're like, oh, but did you think about doing that? I'm like, oh, let me go try that right now. So,
That's cool. Yeah, that's supporting each other, right?
right.
Yeah. Well, welcome to our community. I hope we see more of you.
I hope to see
Um,
more of you.
yeah, I hope so too. Anyways, you take care, and I guess we'll see you on the flip side.
All right.
All right. Bye.
See you later.